The time has come for another round of experimental typography. So for the last time I did this, I froze a couple layouts just to see what kind of effects that I could get. This time around, I want to use this scanner. I don't know if you can really see it. And I want to scan the image and see if we can get some cool effects. Now, I know we've all seen the effect where you kind of stretch the type by following the scanner. It's already been done. I'm not going to be doing that. What I do want to try is a couple of ideas that I really don't know what's going to happen whenever we try them. It's going to be an experiment, which is what this should be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this layout and we're going to try to manipulate it in the scanner and see if we can get some interesting or cool results. I'll be showing you the results as we go, and then at the end, I'll take my favorite one and make a design with it or make slight edits to it just to kind of show a final result rather than just the results of the experiment. With all that being said, let's get to it. Alrighty, so I've got the layout printed out, so now I'm gonna test out a couple different things. So the first thing that I wanted to test out was bending the paper, kind of like folding it, kind of like doing like one of these, and seeing if I can get maybe some interesting shadows or something like that. I might have to do it a couple times, but luckily, since it is all digital, I can do this a couple different times, test some things out, and see if I can get one or two interesting results, and then I'll obviously show you those. Anyways, let's see what happens. Alrighty, so I just did the first test, and it looks like this, which is telling me a couple things. One, I do think it's possible to get the idea that I'm thinking of. Two, I need to be more careful about where I'm putting my hands. So let's try that again and see if maybe we can get some better results. So it seems like the reason they're coming out the way that they are is because of the shadow from this window that I have right here, which is kind of interesting. So I'm gonna close this and then I'm gonna see if maybe we can get some other results. Maybe this is just a bust, I don't know. Alrighty, the lighting's gonna be a little bit different, but let's try and see if that changes the results. Alright, so that looked like this, which is a lot closer to what I was thinking would happen. So I'm gonna try this one more time, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab some tape. That way I don't have to hold it, and I'm gonna try to create a lot more smaller wrinkles rather than just one big wrinkle in the middle. So we're gonna see what happens when we do that. Okay, I finally got it all taped down. It's okay. I was hoping it'd be a little bit neater, but for the purpose of this, I think we'll be okay. So let's scan it and see what happens. So the scan looks like this, which, I don't know. It's kind of cool. I don't know if it's usable though. I may end up doing something with it. I'll probably try at least. If I do come up with anything that's worth showing, I'll share it with you guys, but I don't know. This one isn't quite doing it for me. So let's move on to the next one then. All right, so the next idea I wanted to try was kind of similar to the first one that we did, where I basically try to give the paper some dimension, so that way whenever it's scanning it, there's highlights and shadows. But instead of bending it, I wanted to crumple it and see if maybe we get some interesting effects there. Going off of what we just tried, I'm honestly not too hopeful about this, but you never know. We'll see what happens. So let's crumple it up. All right, so here's where we landed, which I think definitely has a different variation of levels. So let's scan this and see what happens. So this is what the scan looks like, which is interesting. I feel like maybe if we kind of adjust this a little bit, maybe we could get something cool. I don't know, it has an interesting texture, and the difference in the luminance value is kind of cool. I'm just wondering if maybe if we flatten it a little bit more, so it's a little bit more even, we could still keep the texture and some of the distortion without it being too extreme. I don't know, let's see what happens. So actually, if I close this, it looks like it's still propped open, so maybe it's just enough to get some of that texture. Let's find out. Alrighty, so this is what it looks like, which is cool, but I'm not really sure if it's any better than just, grabbing a crumpled paper texture and just throwing it over it. I'll play around with it. Maybe I can get something cool out of it. I don't know. I think that's it for this one. So let's move on to the next experiment. Alrighty, so for the next experiment, what I wanted to do was take the piece of paper and then cover it in cling wrap or saran wrap, whatever you want to call it. I'm thinking that maybe the light will refract or kind of interact with the cling wrap in a cool way, or by overlapping it, it might kind of diffuse the light or spread it out or reflect off of it and maybe make some cool textures. I don't know. It's just a thought. So let's see what happens. Oh my God. Alrighty, it's all cling wrapped up and ready to go, so let's see what it looks like. Okay, so the cling wrap in this looks like this, which I don't know, I'm kind of excited about it. It's not super legible, but I feel like if I play around with the placement of the cling wrap, maybe we could get some cool textures that maybe obscure the type in a cool way, but not so much that you can't read it. I don't know. This is actually kind of cool. I was thinking it was going to be a lot more blown out, but you can actually see a lot of the details, which is really cool. Yeah, I'm going to try this a couple more times and see what I can come up with. Alrighty, so I just did it a couple more times. I've gotten some pretty cool results. I may be able to do something cool with this, but I do want to try one more thing with the cling wrap. And this is really just this is probably going to turn out terrible, but I want to draw on it with a Sharpie and then crumple it up and then see if maybe that has any kind of cool effects. I don't know. We're going to find out. Alrighty, well, let's see what happens. I guess it would help if this was actually working. Alrighty, it took me like an extra 10 minutes to find another one, but here we go. Let's try this again. Ha! It actually works this time. Alright, so it looks like this, which is pretty cool. I'm actually going to try to scrunch it up a bit more, and then that'll be enough. Alrighty, I'm not sure how I feel about this one, because on one hand it's kind of cool, but it also is a little bit illegible, so I don't know. We'll see about this one, but I think I have one more idea that I wanted to try out, and then we can start kind of seeing which version of what I want to try to use and what I can actually come up with. So for the last one, like I said earlier, I know we've all seen the one where you take the paper and then you follow it to kind of distort the text and make it, you know, longer or whatever. I kind of wanted to do the insane version of that. I'm just gonna take this and I'm just gonna move it around as crazy as I possibly can. I want to try to get the center of it with the actual text so it's not too crazy or has a focal point, but I want to see kind of what it looks like if I'm just kind of moving it around frantically and just kind of seeing whatever happens. So let the chaos commence. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is what it looks like. I don't know. It's kind of dumb, but there's something about it that's kind of fun. I don't know. I'm gonna try this again. And see if maybe I can come up with something else. I don't know. This is fun though. This is definitely fun. God, this is just absolute insanity, but it's kind of fun. It doesn't necessarily look beautiful, but it's definitely interesting. I'm gonna try this again, but instead of moving it like super frantically, just kind of crazy all over the place, I'm gonna try to keep it a little bit more subtle, maybe like an in between this and the thing that we've already seen a million times. So it's kind of the next step, but below this. I don't know. Let's find out. All right, this is kind of interesting. It's It's definitely a little bit more understandable what it is, but it's still pretty wild. I'm gonna try this one more time. I'm gonna tone it down just another little bit, and then I'll call it quits here. Yeah, it just kind of keeps coming out like a jumbled mess, which could have some uses down the line, just making some abstract shapes and crazy designs with it. But I think for the purposes of this, I don't think it's quite gonna work. But if it does, you'll see in the end. So that's all the experiments. So I'm going to take all of the photographs that I have, all the scans, and I'm gonna jump into Photoshop and see what I can come up with. Alrighty, so the first thing I did was go into Lightroom and edit all the photos that I had. And then I just started dropping them into Photoshop and adjusting them and just trying to figure out which ones I wanted to use and which ones I just didn't really care for. The first thing I did to test these out was just put a gradient map over them just to kind of see what kind of colors and kind of looks I could get. I feel like that's like a good place to start, just to kind of figure out what's kind of going on and what I might be able to do with it, or what kind of emotion I'm kind of getting from it. So after that, I spent some time and then I found this image. I don't know, I thought it was kind of cool. I thought I could do something with it. So I just kind of dropped it in, cut it off the background, and then just kind of started to mess around with it. At first I thought I could put the typography over his face, but there was just too much detail, too much going on. I started to mess around with the gradient map again just to see if I could, add more contrast between him and the text, but nothing was quite really working the way that I had hoped. Honestly, I felt like I was trying to do a bunch of stuff and just nothing was really working, which was really frustrating to say the least. Eventually, I just kind of gave up on the first idea that I had and just started to work on the next one. Eventually, I landed on this idea where I cut the face in half, played around with adding some other photography in there, but it just became too messy and too chaotic. After that, I ended up just switching the typography to be from top to bottom. I just felt like that made a lot more sense, and that seemed to have a better effect, and I thought that just looked a lot cooler. I played around with using the original layout as an overlay, but nothing really came out of that. Nothing really stuck. I fiddled around with it just a little bit, adding a couple of details here and there, but mostly that was it. After that, I just added some overlays, some distress textures just to kind of add to it a little bit, and that was pretty much it. So here is the final product. While this isn't the greatest design I've ever done, I do feel like it's pretty cool and pretty interesting. I feel like with the gradient map and the text, it does have a certain emotion to it that I think is pretty cool. It definitely has a very chaotic and maybe aggressive feel to it, which, I don't know, not really what I was expecting to get out of this, but hey, it's cool. I also thought it might look cool in some other colors, so here's some other color variations. So overall, I don't know if I would really call this a success. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but I don't know, the typography wasn't super crazy or super interesting. Like, I definitely feel like there were some cool textures and some interesting things going on, but nothing that I was like, oh, like I would never be able to do this in Photoshop, or, this is impossible to get any other way except for by the way that I did it in the scanner. That being said, I do think the design is cool. I do think the typography came out pretty interesting. So, it was a mixed bag of wins and losses, I suppose. But really, that's the whole point of these experiments, is just to try things, see what happens. Sometimes they're going to come out really cool, and sometimes they're not. But that's just the nature of the beast. And honestly, I'm more than happy to be trying these and learning and experimenting, because that's the way that I'm going to find cool and unique things. And hopefully you'll also be able to find some cool and unique things to do for your own work, or it'll inspire you to test some things out for yourself. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this experiment or this design. If you have any ideas for things I should try in the future, or some things that I can iterate upon, these ideas with the scanner, I would absolutely love to hear it. Really, that's all I have for this video. So if you enjoyed it, I'd appreciate it if you would check out the rest of my channel and then consider subscribing. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one.